Okay, so for the Monday night item for week 5, I'm going to say just a word about something I didn't cover here, but there's a video for this. So check that out. And then I'm going to go over the last 2 items. So when coding along with the Bootstrap crash course, one thing is he codes really fast, and I want to show you how to use Emmet for just a little more. And you may have already done this when we were doing the Learn to Code Better. But as an example, and this actually will lead into another topic I just want to cover for a minute. But in here, if I wanted to recreate this structure, right, I'd start with div. I'd say give me a class, and dot would be a class container. Then I would say within that container, okay, and now I don't have to do div again. I could just do the class. I could say give me row, and then within that row, I'd say give me a column. And when I do these dots, it's a class, right? So I should say not give me a row and a column. I mean a row and a column as it relates to Bootstrap classes, just to be clear. And then I could say within that column, right, give me 3. In this case, I'd say box would be the class. Then I could say times 3. And when I do that and I hit tab, then it recreates, or in this case, just, here was what I was trying to do. And I'm going to do undo, because one of the things that can happen, this is fairly common, is when you're writing and you hit tab and nothing happens. And if that ever happens, you backspace, hit the last item again, hit tab, and it generally works. Okay? So I just want to tell you that, because he's going to do that pretty fast inside of there. Now, the other thing I want to tell you that's really handy, because this actually ended up hurting me once, was that because we're using divs here, and this is something called divitis, where we're trying to move away from for the web, but it still is around, and trust me, when you look at websites, you're going to see them. When I gave you the HTML and CSS, right, I showed you things like main, right, and within main we had sections, right? And then at the end of that, we had footer. Now, in this sense, these are much better to use, but they really, in our code, basically do the similar thing. They create a space, a division, a place in the code. These just have more meaning, and he absolutely could have used section and main and all these things. It was just not what his focus was. His focus was really to teach you about the classes, okay? But I want you to know this going forward. Now, having said that as well, sometimes you go so quickly, or he does. I definitely slowed him down a couple times. And the other thing is, when you have structures like this, okay, that have many nested, because you're going to do some nesting divs, and you're not sure like where this div is, what's nested. When you click on the first, in this case div, or whatever that structure is, it will then highlight the corresponding div that is the end of the nest. And that is very helpful at times when you're trying to find out, did I write, because I think that happened a little further in the code along, where I actually ended up having the row container, actually the row div, I had ended it too quickly. And it took me looking at it and lining it up to realize what happened. Okay, so I just wanted to tell you that just as a hint. And, Emmet's just good, and it's great to learn. Okay, so the other thing is for this night, and I've already talked about, and I even spelled it wrong here, but that's all right. Okay, so just keep that in mind as you move into that. And again, there's a video for those. Okay, so for the last 2 items here, we're going to build something. So I want you to, because the idea of what you were getting in the code along is you're not learning all of Bootstrap. You're learning enough of Bootstrap to understand how Bootstrap works so that you can then go build something. Now we're going to end up using a template built on Bootstrap, but for this assignment, what I want you to do, and I've given you the link here, and it's probably good to go down to, in this case, probably components are good. I think components are really helpful. And there's enough of them we could kind of focus here. I mean, if you wanted to, you could go to forms. I actually I don't cover forms for Bootstrap because we're not going to write JavaScript for this class. Anyway, I don't do it, but you can surely look at it here if you wanted to. But I think probably we would focus on the components. Now we do cover some of these in there, but that's okay because if you get multiple exposures, that's okay. So find something. And of course, like most things, right, you need to select, and in this case I say a different topic, but it's really a different, in this case, component. Most likely, unless you choose one of those other things, right? So find something you're interested in, learn about how to implement that item. Now, what's great about the Bootstrap, and some people have differing opinions about Bootstrap, but the one thing I think Bootstrap probably does really well is it gives great examples, right? So you want to take some examples, right? Implement them into a page. So here's the page you're going to create in your public repo. Create a W5 week 5 folder, and inside of there create your index file, and then include the Bootstrap CDN. Now I've done that. You've actually just done that in the code along. So refer back to that for how to do that. I didn't include the JavaScript. I only included the CSS, which you can do if you're going to use some of that form stuff. Maybe you want this the JavaScript, but yeah. Okay, so then do that, and then in the page build it, right? And again, everybody select something different. And this could be one of the things you do like first come, first serve, meaning if you want to reserve a topic and come back and do it later, you could do that. Just make sure that as you're doing the work, you make sure somebody hasn't already covered it. Okay. And then do give a bit of context for how you would use this in a web page, and then write this content in the HTML. So in the HTML itself, write that, and then provide us a link to your output and a link to the thing in Bootstrap that you created, that you implemented, and then write something about the item you created. Okay, so I know there's a bit of writing inside the document and then in your post here as well. And for the hands-on, I usually don't do replies, so I think I will take that off. Let me go look at the next one, because the next one we're going to do, so actually that leads pretty well into the next one. So maybe that's why I did it, because the next one is semantic versioning. Yeah, actually I didn't require here. So you do want to do them on the Bootstrap one. So how many people, right, can tell me they're using a particular version of some particular like browser, or in this case I often hear it when I hear people talking about mobile, like I'm using Android 14, right, version 14, which I am, or I'm using iOS version whatever. But oftentimes we don't understand that there's a actual versioning. In this case we call it semantic. Now this is different than the semantic I was talking about. In a sense it is, but not completely. But this video really, I think, gives you an overview. So I want you to know, because when you're in software, which you are, this class is beginning of a web developer career, you want to understand when things are versioned, what those versions represent. And so this is a good introduction to that. So first watch the video, and then find some software or package or related and describe it in its current version, in the semantic version, in your own words, right? So, you know, when we talk about the semantic version, it's like, okay, it's version ... and here is the things that's in, you know, that represents. So in major updates, minor updates. And again, it would be really normal to want and cut and paste content. You don't want to do that, right? I want to hear your words, your understanding of what that semantic version for that particular software or package or whatever represents, okay? And I even say no cutting and pasting. Okay, so this one, no replies. The other one, you will have replies. All right, that is your week 5 Monday night item.